Our next session is going to be a panel session, our first for the day and the first for the Herd 23, which I think will be is going to provide some extremely interesting conversation, because the people here that do this, so the discussions around should a service provider have knowledge about electronic heat detection systems, and we're very fortunate that with Adam Daniel is going to lead the discussion, and Adam's had, actually I thought he had longer than 29 years, but obviously I haven't kept track of all of them, and had quite a significant journey within the herd improvement industry, and it's one that he would hope that can help promote, that becomes a career choice for so many other members, people out there, and help develop this industry to keep bringing new people in and bringing that enthusiasm that comes. In conjunction with Adam, there's going to be Dr. Carl Hockey. Carl is a dairy veterinarian. He's a managing director of Rural Vet. Carl is based in southeast Queensland, has a PhD on the topic of automated heat detection and timing of AI relative to ovulation. Carl is passionate about working with dairy farms to monitor and improve reproductive performance. And the third part of the team is Andrew Parkinson, proprietor of Wellbred Genetics. And born and raised on a dairy farm in Tongala, along with his wife Cara, have owned and ran Wellbred Genetics for 17 years. Now based in Kyabram, he's witnessed a myriad of changes within the herd improvement industry, from fixed time AI to being able to roll up my sleeves and impact dairy farms' bottom line with genuine repro solutions, but none are bigger than the implementation of automated heat detection systems. So I think we've got three tremendously qualified people to have this discussion. So I'm going to ask Adam to come up here and facilitate this discussion, and hopefully, bring us all at this stage back to the farm.
No worries. Well, thanks, Graham. Well, we're just going to have a bit of a chat. We're sitting on here like we're on the park bench, so to speak. First of all, this is not based on science or scientific data or any of this, so you guys have got a lot of that while you're there. This is a conversation that we had on farm that we thought was important, because we're trying to integrate all this information you get to people that are out and about on farm. From the NHIA's point of view, that while I'm up here representing them today, this sort of technology and how it comes into it ties into what we're trying to do, and get people in our industry as a career, breeding cows, what the value of that is, how you can use it. We've heard from Susanna, she was talking about in Africa there and places like that. There's opportunities at the moment for us to go in other places around the world to teach people and bring this technology into it because of what it can bring, and obviously the breeding values from there. If you get a chance, we've got a little bit of a false cow over there that's over by the table, half a cow to have a look at to breed with, so we'd like you guys to have a bit of a look at that. The discussion today pretty well going to be about what this topic and electronic heat detection and what it does. We've only met Dr. Carl for a little bit, and this guy's so smart that Andrew and I are going to let him do a fair bit of chatting. Andrew and I are basically people that wear overalls and get shit all over us. So that's about what we do.
That's
and he's
all I
going to
do
explain
too.
What happens now. Andrew is extremely passionate about reproduction work and getting cows pregnant. We're not talking about genetics, that's a different story here. We're talking about getting cows pregnant and how important that is. It's got a dollar value figure on it, Dairy Australia have. And one of the little things that we were chatting last night about was we can't believe how little people put. If you can get a return on investment like getting a cow pregnant, Wall Street will be all over you. But for some reason we have this discussion all the time. People take shortcuts and corners. So that's what we're about. So we mightn't even go flying through all our slides. We might just leave that up here, but I'm going to take a seat in a minute. But I'm going to ask Dr. Carl here, what is electronic heat detection? How does this stuff work? So he's going to give you a bit of a start and we'll hook in.
Yeah, so after last night, I went to the 40 years ABV dinner, and we just could see how much things have progressed over time, and we're looking at sensors and technology here. What I found interesting in the heat detection space, we knew, I wasn't around then, but as early as in the 1940s, there was some, PhD student who might have got funding from another David Nation that back in the day, to actually identify that cow activity related to when she was on heat and when she ovulates. But way back then, they identified that, but they had to have a massive big clock face mechanical device strapped to a leg of a cow, and each time she come in, try and get close enough without getting kicked in the head to read how many movements that cow's made over that time. So the knowledge that backs this has been around for so long, but it took a really long time for technology to catch up to allow us to implement that knowledge in a practical, efficient and commercialisation way on a dairy farm. So the evolution of it came with some early versions of activity meters that initially were just a count of a movement, like a little ball switch or something, that we could know. Then each time the cow came into the dairy, that data had to be transferred with a really close range communication system, and we could know how many steps she took through the whole day. And then it went another step up, and we had little processors that could actually tell us, we broke it down, say, into 2-hour little moments through the day. So when she came in the dairy, we now know in 2-hour blocks how many little steps were taken. And then we had the massive breakthrough with things, the old Wii computer game. It's got a little accelerometer in it, which was a 3-dimensional accelerometer, and it can tell the movement and force of movement in 3 different directions, which just goes then from this little singular sort of one-dimensional thing to just blowing our minds. And so we weren't just able then to know that the cow made a move and when she made the move, but we were able to characterise these movements. So now we can talk about that the cow is standing, the cow is grazing, the cow is walking, and then we had advances in technology to be able to transfer that data through long distances. So now with that's getting sent over 1 kilometre or more in real time, and now then that gets transferred through apps and cloud to a phone. So I can look on my phone and know a cow anywhere in the world that I've been allowed to connect to, what she's up to. So all this has happened, bar that 1940 bit, in my lifetime, since I started a PhD many years ago, and David was the one who gave me the funding for that, so thank you, where it was probably a handful of farms in Australia had this technology. Now it's widespread. And does it work was sort of what I was looking at. That's the baseline now. We know that these things relate. Now that the technology and the sensors have gone past our understanding of those relationships to what they mean. So it's kind of now moved into where we need to catch up to the science about what all this information or data can be turned into something useful. And that's... hopefully that's an explanation of what these things are and how they do and how they came about.
Yeah, so it's a bit like Barry spoke about, it was talked about last night. You had your big computer, didn't have a lot of capacity. Now we've got everything down in the phone. It's this technology that we're getting on all along and how it supposedly makes our life easier. We're talking about like making life easier. So Parky, how does this stuff work on farm?
Well, I was actually thinking I could be the third stooge and be the one that didn't talk, because Carl, looking at it from an academic's point of view, he can deliver the message better than anyone. But from me as a service provider, like Adam said, this is one of the few days I haven't got, I swore I wasn't going to swear up here, but haven't got shit on me. So basically there's a massive amount of information that these collars or ear tags or pedometers or whatever gather, and then they drop that into obviously the herd management software. So basically, as a service provider, there's an unlimited amount of information that I can access. I can access, is she on heat? Has she ruminated? If we want to look at it, obviously, when they're on heat, activity goes up, rumination goes down because they haven't got time to eat because they're too busy getting all funky with each other. So are they on heat? Or I can find, are they not on heat? Are they anestrous cows? Are they cows that are unwell? So basically that one piece of technology that Carl's talking about gives us an endless supply of information. It's just up to you how much of it you want to access, I guess.
Because the interesting thing about this...
In a roundabout way.
When we started this bit of a discussion, I had all the electronic heat detection people ring up and say, what are you going to talk about? And like, what do you mean, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about your product. Yeah, but you're going to say anything positive about it? Well, yes and no. One of the big things about it, the marketing, and why this comes about today as well, is people have been sold, marketing's a great thing, we're all involved in it. It's been sold on the dream that these electronic collars will just draft all the cows out and Parky will come flying in the driveway and there'll be 12 cows there and he'll just breed them and off you'll go. That don't happen. And people think it happens and people buy it, and the emotion of buying it was bought on that. And it's a pretty powerful emotion to get them on. So you think, okay, that's not a bad thing. The reality is that's secondary when you start talking to people about it. You can read some brochures, there's some on your table there about it. Most of the things in there talk about animal health and what it does to your animals, what information it gives you back. Heat detection and AI is one part of it, very important part. But that was one of the big things that came about it. Nearly everybody that I've dealt with, and I'm going to ask Andrew and Dr. Carl the same question, has bought this system, these systems, doesn't talk to me about heat detection, tells me how many crook cows it found, when my cows were calving, what I'm feeding the cows, what the differences are. Suddenly this bit of technology that's sold on a piece of emotion too, which is fine because we all do buying like that, has got an underlying use that's a lot more valuable to you. So I guess, you know, when we're looking at this, what are the pitfalls with this sort of product and on-farm? Carl, what's one of the big things about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, in earlier days, there may have been some differences from different providers in terms of, you know, the practical use of them because of the way they sent data or what sort of sensors they had. That's kind of a neutral playing field now. It really comes back now to the way that you can interface with it on your farm, and that answer is different for every farm. So there's no this is the device that would be what you would recommend to everybody. It's going to be, well, what herd management software program do you use? What other technologies are being recorded in your dairy? And how is that information going about? Because one of the unfortunate lacks of advances in this space is really the integration, and that's where we really need a lot more movement in integrating, because people don't want to have to access two different platforms. You want to be using one interface in your farm. So if you have to look up the cow activity in one and look up when she calved or when you last gave her a treatment of a drug or whatever on another platform, that's just painful. No one's got time for that. And that's not limited by technology. That's limited by the commercial realities of how we sort of, I guess, interact with each other, and that's still probably our biggest limitations in this part and in this space. And so in my mind, it's really, if you're a farmer making a decision about this, you'd want to learn how are you planning to interact with this, not does it work. And like you said, will it automatically draft cows for you, or do you need to go look it up, identify which cows, and then enter that into another system? Or how do you plan to interface with this thing? What's the user experience like? And there's a bit of that sort of, you know, are you an Apple or an Android person sort of experience where once you're on a platform, the effort and movement to go to another one or inconveniences, there's still a lot of hurdles there in all the different products on the market.
So with the application of this on farm, one of the little talking points, and Andrew's going to touch on this now, timed AI with collars, or do we just don't worry about it? What's the story?
Well, this is probably a bit of a contentious issue, Adam, and I'll have a swipe here, I guess. And that's why you got me up here, let's be honest.
That's true.
I guess it comes down to what does the farmer want from this product? Like whether you're a Holden or a Ford man, a Honda or a Yamaha, whatever, that doesn't matter. It's what do you want from it? So if you want to improve your repro, you want to get more cows pregnant, you want to shorten your calving pattern, fixed time AI and electronic heat detection go hand in hand. The one thing that a couple of the marketers did really well early was put the collars on. You won't need to use repro drugs. You won't need to use timed AI. You'll halve your vet costs. Your cost recovery will be, you know, inside 12 months. Well, that's the biggest load of bullshit you've ever heard. Like they did a great job of getting the product out there, and and they are great. Make no mistake. But if you want to get cows pregnant, you've got to have some sort, and you want to have a tight calving pattern, you have to have some sort of intervention very early in your breeding program, joining program, and then back it up with, you know, 6-8 weeks of electronic heat detection returns, and nothing works better in my book. That's the small section of people I deal with that have them. Not everyone does an intervention. Some guys just let the collars run. So I'm probably contradicting a bit of it. Most guys still do time day at the start, but in saying that, we recently intervened on some non-cycling cows in a 700 cow herd, and the list of non-cycling or cows that hadn't been joined yet was 28, so that's under 5%. But if you want to shorten it up, you still have to intervene, in my book.
Now, it seems to be the case with it, that you're looking at this, it's a business you're running, the business of making milk. Some people have the business of getting calves. We'll talk about that in a minute with sex semen, but they're all things out there to use to shorten that interval and get those in. You know, we have a little bit of a saying, I'll put my New Jeans hat on for a minute. If you're a heifer calf born after day 35 of calving, you're probably not making it in that group of heifers. You're not going to get reared, you're not going to get in. Some corporate places might be a little bit more tougher than family farms. So it starts to put the ball in your court again about this idea how you're going to make your money and what you're going to do on your farm. One of the interesting ones, and I'm going to get Carl to elaborate on this, talking in the future, which we've had today off a few people here, do you see this sort of technology being able to measure some of the stuff that Jenny's talked about? Barry was talking about being a circular community out there, and you're involved in this. These sort of things are going to information for farmers, carbon, feed.
Yep, 100%, and that's where Jenny gave an example of that. One of those PhDs that was looking at using these accelerometers to monitor feed intake. So we're moving from expensive research type monitoring devices and using how well cheaper commercial devices can identify and characterise those same things. And this sort of three-dimensional accelerometer is, the capability of that is still limited now by our ability to find those relationships. So we need to do catch up. There would be no end of opportunities for more research in terms of understanding feed intake, pasture utilisation, these sorts of things which could be monitored, where we're not just trying to look at a cow over time against herself, we're now looking at whole groups. And, you know, there are things, devices that sort of have their versions like the feed factor. Yep. You may have seen that in one of the commercial products. So there's ways of sort of seeing, okay, the whole herd as a whole, are they out grazing, are they ruminating well, and how this relates to nutrition, optimising their diet. So yeah, there's heaps of space there, and then still just breaking up the cow's day into resting, walking, sleeping. What's a good balance? These things can monitor that. What would you do about it? So it's the data is endless. It needs to be converted into useful information. We need to interface with that in a systematic way that then we can create action plans. And so we've got to turn data into action, or else it's just a whole lot of sort of interesting facts, but they're not actually making progress or outcomes for a dairy farmer.
Yep. I think that's the big thing when you look at this product, when you get at the initial phase, as we said, and then you look at where it can lead you in the future, it's going to be quite a changer for your business. You know, and talking about changes in it and plugging cows and the rest of it, sex semen?
Just on the back of what Carl said, it's the newest and brightest and shiniest tool we've got. It's brighter and shinier than you and me, Adam, anyway. So, but it's also, it is a great tool. It gives a great amount of information, but you've got to want to access that, and you've got to want to be able to act on that information. So you've got to want to, if you're using it solely at the moment for heat detection, you've got to get into that report. You've got to get the information you want. It's not just going to do it for you. You're not going to buy that product, install it, and all of a sudden everything gets brand new. You still have to use it. It's no different to reading a KMR or reading tail paint, or, you know, if the cow's unwell, looking at her vital signs, sex semen.
Yep.
So are we using more sex semen because of the electronic? I'm asking my own question here.
Yep. You can answer yourself, you'll be right.
Yeah. Yes, but it's the same thing again. I've got electronic heat detection. Okay, I'm going to use sex semen. It's not just a case of, all right, today we're going to start using sex semen. There's 15 cows on, 15 cows get sex. That's not the case. You've still got to make sure that they're younger cows with no, you know, they haven't had calving difficulties. They've had no prior reproductive issues. You've still got to target your groups just like you would if you didn't have the electronic collars on, if you were using tail paint or KMARs or whatever it may be. So
Timing help you, Andrew?
Yes. Yeah.
The ability to actually know when she first actually came on heat. We never used to know that.
No.
It was a guess.
No, definitely. And it's, like I said, it's a tool, it's a great thing, but you've got to utilise the information it gives you in order to be able to achieve a greater result using sex semen. It won't just happen, you've got to make it happen. But it is a great tool for that, yes.
So going on what the panel, the stories about today about do people expect us as service providers, resellers, whatever we call ourselves, to know about it? Question came about, we're on a farm working one day, last day of AI, luckily, 9 cows to AI, bit of a storm overnight, 287 cows, it starts drafting. So I rock up to the farm and then they tell me, we've got 280 odd cows for you to breed. I'm thinking, I'm not that good at tech. I'm not that fucking bad either, I can tell you. I'm swearing about it.
You said you weren't going to say that word, Adam.
That was my slab, but there we go. So, and it's like, right, we're in a bit of trouble here. And old mate farmer says to me, I think we can sort this out. And I said, we're going to have to. We don't have that much semen left and there's a bit to do here. So we got to the problem that came with it. And he bought the system because he really wanted us to just turn up and be able to do this. And what it taught him was that you couldn't do that, that he had to teach all his staff, and it was imperative that those people knew it. Now, we put a little thing out on one of the Facebook posts there one day about what the farmers think. The majority of farmers came back and said, no, it was their responsibility to do it. They would teach their managers, they would teach their staff. And it's like everything to do with doing this sort of job. To get the data right, it's up to you guys that are running it to have that about. It's new to us and how we're dealing with it. So it's pretty important that you guys make sure that you're using it. We'll interface with it. We'll get your cows bred. You guys will be happier out there as farmers and life will go on pretty well. You'll get the animals that you want to breed. You'll take on this new technology because there's enough people out there doing it and it'll be pretty positive. Is it the full answer? No, we're going to get people with stickers and KMAs. They're still going to do it. You don't have to have it. But if you do invest in it, make sure you go the whole way and learn how to do it properly. Don't do it half-assed, because if you ask us to do it, probably ain't going to happen. And that's one of the things you get with this sort of stuff. We've only got a little short bit left, but one of the things, do you reckon we should enter the data in on the farm for the farmers, or it's their responsibility?
Short answer?
Yeah.
No.
Rightio. There you go. Same answer I had. Your answer?
My answer is they need to integrate it enough so there's only one place to enter the data.
Yep.
That'd make a big world of difference.
Yep.
They are doing that to a certain degree. Most of the electronic heat detection programs that I deal with, 90% of the farmers, their heat detection program marries up with their either iDairy or Easy Dairy. It's not seamless. It does cock up from time to time, but most of the time it does integrate.
Yep.
Enter it once is enough.
Take some responsibility is what we say.
Correct.
Rightio.
Thanks, T. I think that's been a tremendous discussion. We've got a couple of questions, but I'm going to go to the second question first because I think that helps answer the first one. Can you tell us what you see good operators doing to train their staff to get the most out of the systems? Because I think that's one of the underlying messages I've heard is that, you've got to understand what you want and how to get it out. So Adam or Carl, maybe is there any thoughts around that question?
I don't know. Do you want to have a crack at it first? Or do you want me to have a
You
crack?
guys are on farm there dealing with this, so I'm leaving it to you.
Andrew?
An answer.
Yeah.
Unlike me to have an answer.
Once, I'm not allowed to answer anymore.
Well, it's not going to be as long as Carl's. I don't have that much knowledge for starters. Basically, the programs, the electronic heat detection systems that are probably the most popular, the one that was the most popular in our area had a really good support network, and that was I'll name them, that was the SCR or the All Flex or the Heat Time or whatever it was called. So while CMEX were the distributor for it, they had a really good network of support staff, namely Joe Holloway. You can give me a slab for mentioning him later. He did a great job of training the staff, training the operator, also training me to be able to do it. So then if a new staff person comes along, you just want to keep it simple, the old KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid. So you want to have, these are the basic reports you need in terms of heat detection. There's a heat index or an actual number that measures that cow's activity. Stick to that. And if she's a return within that 17 to 23 day window, it's just a case of learn the simple stuff well and it'll work well. And it's as simple as that. But then All Flex decided to do a backflip and take it on their own. And now it's become an online type service or backup, and that obviously isn't as good as what it was previously. What the answer to that is, I don't know. But when they did have that component of service attached to it, it worked really well.
So maybe I'll just suggest the Allflex guys just have a little chat offline and work that out. As we're in a non-product space.
Yeah.
And with that, and so am I getting the sense that one, it's about it's the newest and shiniest, but it's also how instead of the emotional selling, here's the actual return you can get from this and the support and around the item, because I'm drawing the conclusion that it is a tremendous tool to use, but it's like all good things, unless you know how to get out, what you're going to get out of it, you're actually not getting what you think you're investing in.
Correct.
So,
I think so.
Carl?
When someone's making a decision for themselves of who would you go with, it's not about then what works better. It's about, well, who do you already have a good relationship with? Who do you have trust that they're going to come and help answer your questions, not leave you high and dry? They're going to work with you until you feel comfortable with this product, because they're all probably going to have the potential to achieve the same end, but that's going to be limited by that backup and help that you get, so that you can get past the initial learning barriers. And once you're there, they're all going to work as well as each other.
Okay. Another question here from Danny, and this I'm not sure whether the data's in yet that you guys were, but what % benefit in car freights for AM, PM, AI versus AM only? Is there anything that at this stage that you can comment around that?
I'm not going to give you a tangible number because I don't want to be held to it. But it's not a lot different to the old normal heat detection type theory, the AM versus AM, PM. I think it was somewhere around 1% or slightly over 1% difference in conception. But if you put sext into that scenario, it's probably a bit different. Like I said, I'm not going to quote a number because I don't want to be held to it. But using sex semen, if you are joining twice a day, there's obviously going to be benefits because it knows when the cow ovulated or when she was on heat, and we all know that the eggs released between 12 and 24 hours after standing heat. So that's a bit of a no-brainer, that one. But yeah, I can't give you an actual number.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think it's been great to have a panel of people up here. They've had 98% no problem expressing themselves, every couple of little drops of words, but otherwise we've done pretty well.
Adam?
So I'd like everyone to put their hands together to thank Adam, Carl and Andrew.
Thank you.